Hey guys, if you don't know who I am, I'm Savia Rocks, and I help people tell their stories, stay inspired, and get educated as they find the pride of who they are within creativity, but most of all, without judgment. Join us as we talk about
You really want to leave a legacy, do something for mankind. Do something that's going to benefit not just your children, everyone else's children.
I think our job as humans is to become the person we were born and peel away the cultural stuff that was given to us, the trauma, like peel away the stuff that changed us or that was thrown on us or made us small or made us go off track.
The biggest thing I've always found is when people think they know so much, then they start knowing so little.
And I'm making the right choice, and I'm showing up for myself, and I'm showing up for what matters in life.
Sometimes I think that trauma doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I think trauma can help you make choices in your life that turn something that started bad into something beautiful. So guys, welcome to season 7 of the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Get deeper. Tables are turning, world in reverse.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Ajita here with me. She is a spiritual healer with a master's degree in psychology. She's also a founder. Ajita, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm very well. Savia, thank you so much for having me. I feel very privileged.
You're more than welcome. So I'm going to get into our first question, which kindly is, could you tell me a bit about yourself, where you grew up, but also how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Wow. We're diving in deep right off the bat. So I was born in India.
Yes.
I was born into a family of doctors, long line of doctors. And I call them healers. So my father was an internationally renowned doctor. He had a very short life. He passed away very young. But within that time, he did a lot of very, very special things for humanity. He was a neuro-ophthalmic surgeon doing research on a blindness disease. He was the only person who was, through his research, finding a cure for that blindness disease. It was called retinitis pigmentosa. And it also runs in the family, so it's a genetic disease. I remember growing up, there was a family of 3 or 4 boys. They were all blind because they all had that disease. So my maternal grandfather, my paternal grandfather, both doctors, also very renowned, cousins, uncles. So I grew up with that sense of service to humanity.
I like that.
And they were not at all oriented around materialism, money. It was really about service. So that was my foundation, and I felt I saw that in myself from a very, very young age. But that's a story for a different time. But also, my family was extremely traditional and very strict. That's a word in English. In India that we use, they were the kind of family I came from, very blessed to come from that type of a family. And so there were a lot of protocols that were expected from us that we would adhere to. So it was a structured life, if I may say so. Education was extremely important. Integrity, good manners, all of those things.
No, I definitely understand that. So it all makes sense, and it's funny how our backgrounds have an integral part of who and what we become in our lives,
Indeed.
which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So my second question kind of ties into the first one, but goes a little bit deeper, and it has several different layers to that question, which is one of my favorite questions, which is, can you define who you are as a person, but also who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person that you may not have believed had purpose or felt had purpose to traveling and finding the journey of the person that you wanted to become?
Wow. In my case, Savia, actually, I started to play with energy since I was 4 years old.
I love that.
So from a purpose perspective, I think I was put on that path very, very early. It was not as defined because it was very sort of circuitous and tumultuous to unravel it. But my first memory of, so when I was 4 years old, I remember feeling empathetic in the pain of the people that were around me. Very distinctly, friends of my parents, they had come to visit, and we call all the ladies auntie. So, this auntie was talking to my mom about something that she was experiencing in her life. And I was 4, and I don't think they really cared that I was, hanging around. But it had a really strong impact on me because I picked up her pain. And what I did with it was at that time very hard for me to know. But I think I had this very strong intention to help alleviate her problem, and probably had at that time the gift of being able to work with energy, because there was something that I began to do more and more under such circumstances. And it took a few years to really realize that I was, in fact, having an impact on the lives of these people. Of course, when I was 4, 5, and 6, I was just doing what I was doing, and that was that, right? I was too young to try and see a cause and effect kind of a situation. But as I was 8, 9 years old, I started to watch out for that, or the same person would have a conversation with my parents, and now they were feeling better. There were solutions. Of course, there was, I went to the doctor and they gave me the right medicine, or, whatever the situation may have been.
Yeah.
But at some point, I felt that perhaps I was contributing to their betterment in some big or small way. And I continued to work with that, Savia. And by the time I was in my early teens, I became quite sort of purposeful about it.
Yeah.
And so that part of my journey was written very early. And like I said, because I come from a doctor's family, my father was very keen for me to go into medicine. I would have loved to, except I didn't want to study hard for it. I've always been very much in my head, dreamy, working with energy for manifestation and all of that kind of stuff. So, being all in my books was very hard for me. I don't know how much more you want me to talk about this, because there was a really big twist.
Oh, go for it. I want to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then what happened? I think my father and I became quite clear around the time I was 16, 17 years old, because in India you have to appear for a very tough national exam to be able to get admission in medical school. And at that time, there were very limited medical schools.
Yes.
And there were many, many, many people who wanted to appear, and it was a very competitive exam. So we got off that path. But I was always interested in psychology, human behavior and all of that, which again tied back to, what I was interested in terms of energy. So I got into a university to, study psychology. When actually I did child development. So in my my bachelor's degree is in child development.
Okay.
And then I went into psychology, did my master's and things like that. So when my education was done, I was about 22 years old. I came out into the world really gung-ho. I was going to change the world because the world is changing, right? And so what happened, there was a lady, a young lady at the time. She was senior to me by a couple of years. My father, being the doctor, he had a medical practice, so she knew I had my father had a clinic. There was a space, and she suggested that we go into business together, start a practice. I was 22 and not very worldly wise, so I'm like, yeah, brilliant, this is fantastic. Let's go, let's do it. We have a place, all of that. Now, her specialization was different than mine. She specialized in working with children with special needs.
Okay.
So we decided on a strategy, and we started this clinic. And because she had already been working, she had some young clients. So we started right off the bat working with these young people. Savia, I will give you two stories that completely changed my life at the time. So there was a young girl that I used to work with. She was 5, 6 years old, and she had Down syndrome.
Okay.
And there was another young man, a young boy. He was 10 years old, and he had lost his sight because he had some issue with water filling up in his brain. They had to do some surgery, put a shunt in. And while they were doing that, he lost his eyesight. Oh. And he came from an extremely rich family, very, very rich. So this boy would come, he would be dropped by a driver, and he would just come and he would hit himself. And he wasn't very well looked after. The parents weren't very interested in him. He had an older brother who was now the apple of their eye. And, so it was unfortunate from that perspective. And, I was 22. I was young. I was very, very empathic and soft heart. And it was very heartbreaking to watch this boy feeling uncared and loved, so that was traumatic. And then this young girl, one day she came, she had a really big burn mark on her forearm, big blister. Now, of course, she couldn't tell us what happened. So I waited for the session to get over. Her mother came, and, so I asked her mother, I said, what happened? So the mother said, she took my husband's glasses, threw them out of the window, and I was cooking. I got angry, and I took a pan and I just put it on her arm. Exactly. I had the same expression. I was horrified. And, and I was like, how could you do that?
And they still have the child?
Beg your pardon?
And they still had the child?
Yes. Now, in India, it was different. And this was also many, many years ago. Child services and those kinds of things didn't exist. So, I got quite judgmental with her. And so she was very calm, Savia, and she just asked me, she said, do you have children? I said, no. She said, are you married? I said, no. And she goes, okay, in that case, you will not understand. And I was like, what do you mean I don't understand? Look at my degrees. I have the education. Of course I understand. But she didn't say very much. That was the end of our, session. She left. But something happened that day, Savia. I went home. I was very distraught because I think I started to feel that I did not have what it took to change the world the way I wanted to. There was something drastically missing. And so I think a couple weeks and I started to get more depressed. I didn't want to eat. So I called up my friend and I said, I don't think I want to continue with this practice. I have some more work to do. I don't know what that work is. I stepped out of it. What happened, and you could call it in spiritual terms, was perhaps the dark night of the soul for me, the first big one. And I started to go very inward to try and look at human suffering and the solution for it. And I realized that the solution that I was bringing was not appropriate from my perspective.
Understood.
That there was something else, there was something deeper at play that I did not know about. And a very funny thing had happened. So when I was doing my master's, which was a tough enough program as it is, I was going home one day, and interestingly, it was a rare phenomenon, but I would take a train from my university to home, and then I would, take one of those little rickshaws to go home.
Yeah.
And there was a long line, and I thought, forget this. And I saw a bus, and I just jumped into that bus, and I was going home, and it stopped at this bus stop, and I looked over, and it said College of Architecture. Now, something that most people don't know is I was very interested in getting into architecture when I was in school. I love design and those kinds of things. So I don't know what happened. I just got off the bus, went into the university, and they said, well, school, architecture is 4 years, this, that, and the other. Oh, we have interior design, 2-year program. I'm like, sign me up.
I like that.
So when I walked out of there, I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? How are you going to do all of this? But anyway, Savia, I managed to complete both programs. And it is incredible how the universe works, because the universe knew that I would need this degree while I was figuring out the other stuff.
Yeah.
So when I shut down my practice, my psychology practice, I started to work in design. And I did that for a while my introspection and that internal finding myself and all of that was happening. And that is where OmniSource Healing was born.
There you go.
Because I began to understand, and I call this remembering my past lives, where I was a healer, I was a teacher in many different forms. And the memory of that wisdom started to bubble up inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to make sense of that, and karma, past lives, and wounding related to all of that became a part of my understanding. And I thought, this is the missing piece. That you can't just work with the mind, you have to go much deeper for a full solution. And once that happened, then I started working with people.
Yes.
But pro bono, without an organized practice, because people started to realize that maybe there's something she does that works.
Yeah.
And I did that for about 10 years. It was pro bono work. I was not talking about my work. It was by word of mouth. They would tell each other, but I didn't have a practice. I was, doing my interior design on the side for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then this. And then I met somebody through my design practice who happened to be a healer. He looked at me and says, "What the hell are you wasting your life for? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to be doing?" And I just looked at him and I thought, "Excuse me, I just met you. What are you talking about?"
Hey, the universe speaks through people.
Yeah, exactly. And then we became good friends, and we started talking. And then he got very instrumental in me getting structured and starting my healing practice. And then of course through that the inner OS was born, which is a practice much more for people who are in the corporate world, who don't like words like healing, karma, past lives. So I call it inner OS. It's the inner operating system of an individual, and how they can be successful as entrepreneurs and founders and C-suite in their own lives. So that's kind of the long and short of that question that you asked me. I hope that gives you an answer.
It sure does give me an answer, a beautiful one as well. I do want to ask you, why do you feel that the corporate world can be quite political at times? But one thing I would like to ask you is, why do you feel that the corporate world doesn't like hearing the word healing or spiritual or karma? It's quite an interesting thing to understand.
So I think one of the reasons is, so you have to understand, and why did I not talk about the fact that I was a healer? It took me years. Even today, when I'm on podcast Savia, I watch very carefully what I say, and I try not to bring in all of my deep spiritual experiences of karma, of healing. I have such fantastic stories around it, because one of the things that you have to understand is, back in the day, healing was the domain of monks.
Yes, very true.
Of priests.
Yes.
And even then, they didn't do the kind of healing that I'm talking about. But all the same, those are you went to a doctor if your body and mind was hurting. And if you needed anything else, at least in my part of the world, you went to an astrologer, you went to a priest, and the rest of the world, you would go to the church, you would go to the mosque. So somebody like me who's wearing jeans and skirts, like, how do I fit into that picture, first and foremost? I have a proper, regular education. And, I think the turn of events where science began to become very prominent in society.
Yes.
And the scientists that started to propagate this philosophy that what you can prove is the only thing that is believable. took away a lot of the whole esoteric world and became quiet and dark, because what I do, you cannot touch, feel, and the only proof is in the pudding when you feel better. You know, and if you go back, the burning of the witches,
Oh, yeah.
that was all, they were all healers.
I believe I was a witch in my past life. I'm
Yeah.
always smelling burning. And they say that if you're always smelling burning, it's more than likely you were definitely a witch in your past life, or a healer of some kind. And because obviously they wanted to banish that, they would burn all the witches. So for some reason, I feel really spiritually connected. Even when I'm walking by myself, and I could be anywhere, I smell burning, and that's, I know for sure that is a spiritual thing. I know 100%.
I have goosebumps. Like I'm cold. I'm chilly right now.
100%.
And you're very right. It is a very big spiritual message, because that's where the unseen world and the unseen beings are with you. They're letting you know that we're walking with you, your angels, your passed on loved ones, you know, and when you don't just get these kinds of thoughts because they are a part of your soul, you were most likely a healer, you know, witches were healers, absolutely. And today, what you're doing by allowing somebody like me and bringing my voice to the world, telling stories, that's healing to the world, right?
Right.
It shows up in different ways. So anyway, going back to your question, Savia, so because that shift came, the corporate world is a lot about reports, data,
Yes.
you know, and even interpersonal relationships are not really encouraged. Though the ship is turning, you know, because they don't want you to bring your family problems in because it affects the bottom line, it affects work. It was all about achieving whatever you were there to do.
Yeah.
And that's what the corporate world, you know, became, forgetting that everyone in that world is a human being, has the same problems, has the same desires, but they had to be checked at the door. Now, I think it's definitely changing. You know, conscious leadership is some word that, you know, you hear. People are starting to talk about training the inner being so that they could be better leaders. And that is coming, but slow, but it's coming. So I am hopeful.
And
A lot of people I work with, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the people I work with who are C-suite and founders and athletes and politicians and, you know, people in really high positions that are impacting a lot of people do not want to own up that they come to me.
Okay.
You know, I worked with a gentleman who got divorced, and, you know, he was a CEO. He had a startup, and then I worked with him, his ex-wife, you know, with a lot of people within the family group. And I worked with him for over a year, but, you know, and then he became the CEO of a university. But as soon as he was getting remarried, he messaged me and said, Ajita, could you take my testimonial off your website, please? And I said to him, I said, you're working with young people. You should be an example that you are not afraid to work on yourself. You are not afraid to overcome the challenges that life presented you with. But he said, no, but, you know, I'm getting married and it's not going to reflect really nicely when people search me and, I am a public figure. This will come up and I would like not to happen. So I said, okay. And I took it off.
Wow. For me, I feel that's an abundance of pride.
I agree. What an example you can set for people, right? Because we're all afraid to reach out and say, I need help.
That's so phenomenally different. For me, I would have seen, if he kept it on, for me, I would have seen him more as a leader, leading by example, knowing that, like you said, we all go through challenges, trials and tribulations in our life, but those curveballs that we hit into help us become and evolve. Like I always say, every time we evolve every 7 years. So our first 7 years predicts our next 7 years, our next 7 years predicts our next 7 years, and then it just evolves from there on to who we become. And that is the beautiful thing about life. But sometimes people get so caught up in other people's opinions of them, they'll rather sit there and think about, what is this person going to say about my reputation, than sitting down and saying to themselves, I don't care what people think about me. I've done this for this reason. It was part of my journey. It's part of who I am. If people don't like it, I don't care. If people want to know who I am and love me for me, they will love me for me. And it's sad. It's sad that happens.
So we imagine if life were perfect for everybody.
True.
Would there be any growth? How many of us go through a challenge and say, my path completely changed. I grew, I'm better for having experienced that challenge. So that's a big thing. And, and we try to teach our children that it's okay when they fall, it's fine. When, purportedly, when something doesn't go right, it's not a failure, and so when teachers are able to do that. But Savia, we live in a world where we wear multiple masks.
Yes.
Right? Every individual has problems. None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And yet, when we step outside, we show a face that is not authentic. I have no problems. I am very rich. I have all the answers. My family is perfect. Like, where are we not pretending?
That's true. I think as I got older, I realized that the only person that I'm hurting by pretending is myself. And then I realized that it is better for me to be who I am and ask the universe to only send me the people who will love me because of who I am. I don't need, and it's going to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound me saying it, but I would prefer honesty. I would prefer 5 beautiful people in my life who are consistent, who are there for me, who I am there for them, than 1 million people who are not consistent at all.
Absolutely.
And I realize the power in that.
But that's wisdom, Savia.
Suppose.
It's wisdom, it's bravery, and it's healing. When we heal, we come to these conclusions that I need only 2, 3, 4 people to accept me for who I am.
That's enough.
And have an authentic, honest relationship with me.
Yeah.
But look at the world we live in, Savia. Yeah. Influencers and, we're making reels and we're hiding behind technology and all of us pretending to be something that we're not at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So there's a lot of work to be done. And, we need people like yourself to make that example and to give people the courage to be honest with themselves first and then begin to be honest with the world. And most people won't like you, but that's okay. But eventually, I think 20 years later, 50 years later, 500 years later, I don't know when that will be, but each of us is, would have done a little bit of the work.
Yes.
And eventually the collective will come to that space of pure authenticity.
I agree with you on that. I definitely do. So I wanted to say our voices are a power tool of freedom and expression, which you kind of just spoke about. How do you feel that you use your voice to express your own freedom, but also help people to express their freedom in who they are, representing themselves, but also within creativity of what you do?
Very, very big part of my work, Savia, is to let people let down their guard,
I love that.
to remove the masks.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, so that they can see who they are. Because a lot of the problems that they are experiencing, whether you look at it from a psychology perspective or you look at it from a spiritual perspective,
Yes.
the universe wants us to love ourselves. Self-love is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And to love yourself, you have to know who you are without all of the bullshit.
Yes,
Here,
I like that.
swear word.
Yes, I like that. I'm so glad you just said it.
Right? So I spend a lot of time. So I have two aspects to my work in the one-on-one healing. So it's a 90-minute session. I spend 60 minutes in what I call spiritual counseling.
Okay.
I bring in my spirituality, I bring in my psychology, and we undress the being with all of the fancy garb that they're wearing, right? And come into the element. And that takes time, that takes courage, it's painful. And then from there we say, okay, what needs to now be healed? What do we need to remove? What work do we need to do? Why do you lack confidence? Okay, because of this, this, this. Why are you angry? Because of this, this, this. Why are you not able to go into the world and make money? You're brilliant, you have the skills, but okay, these are the things that are blocking you. So, and then when they start to do that, I'll just tell you, I was telling you about that client of mine, the London client near the.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I just finished talking to her because I worked with her for a long time, and she came in a very, very difficult situation. She had autoimmune disease. She had no confidence. She had a lot of, spiritual, physical, and mental issues.
Yeah.
And now she is. There's restructuring in her office, and she has the option to stay in her current job or apply for something else. And I know last year, if it had been last year, she would have said, no, Ajita, I don't want more money. I'm going to stay here, And she writes to me and she goes, I've got these options. And I'm like, what are you going to do? And she said, I'm going for it.
That's my God.
Right? So she is confident in herself. In fact, she called me. She said, Ajita, if you have 5 minutes, I have a quick thing I want to run by you. And she goes, the current job I have, I can automatically move into.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do that, I won't be able to upgrade with these jobs. So what should I do? I said, what do you feel like? She said, my heart is saying, forget about the job. Just say no to this one and apply for the new ones. And I mean, there's always a possibility you don't get it, right?
Right.
So look at how far she has come in loving herself and accepting herself and offloading all the things that had beyond buried her. And she's 40 years old, 45 now. Most of her life she has been in pain. So this, and now she has a voice. I mean, she can stand for herself in the office and say, yes, no, this is not right. This is how it needs to be done. That's fantastic for me to watch that.
I like that. See, it's funny how life turns around, but it always turns around when you least expect it as well. And that's one of the most beautiful things too. I want to ask you, when was the last time that you felt totally at peace with yourself?
I do a lot on a daily basis.
I like that.
I've done a lot of work around it, Savia. So yesterday was Tuesday. I hold this free healing and teaching circle. And yesterday the topic was how to connect with your angels.
Oh, I wish I was there.
Oh, well, I have it recorded. I'm happy to share it with you. And then just spur of the moment, I said, would you like to connect and should we do a bit of a healing? A meditation. And everybody was on board. And so, I just made something up and I did that meditation. And everybody, like so many of them had never been in touch with their angels, and they got names and they got stuff and some connection. And I remember even saying, and it's recorded on that, saying that I felt so calm, so peace, so full of love, so amazing things, and that happens quite often. I wake up very grateful. I've worked at it, so
It takes time, but it
Indeed.
works. It takes time, but it works. I would love to talk to you about legacy. Legacy can have many meanings to many different people in many different ways. And I think me asking you this question, I feel is so relevant right now. So my question for you is, a lot of people believe that legacy is when you pass, when you leave behind memories of who you are. But I believe legacy is a daily occurrence. And the reason why I say this is because it's in the people you speak to, the stranger you speak to, how they articulate to you, how you articulate to them. It could be a smiling gesture. It could be a one-word sentence you say to someone. It could be just a look at someone that they remember for the rest of their lives and they pass on. What do you believe legacy means to you, and how has legacy helped you within your life?
Savia, you're so articulate in what you said and how you said it, and I 1000% agree with you. People do think a legacy is when you're gone and what your next generations are going to do with what you have left behind.
Oh, yeah.
But the creation of that, whatever it might be, it could be a business, could be your family, those are big things. And like you said, when you smile at somebody, maybe they just need that smile, they're having a tough time. That is a life-changing moment, even momentarily, but it is. You give your seat to somebody, it's that constant impact. And it's a ripple effect, the way I see it, because when you make somebody feel better,
Yes.
when you give to somebody in a way that they benefit,
Yes.
they are then in a better position to pass it on, knowingly or unknowingly.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? I say this, when one person heals, the world heals. Because, if you're a wife, you're better to your husband, you're managing your children better, you go to work, your friends, because you're healing, and then you want the best for these people, and it ripples. So for me, my work is all about that. I see it in my daily life multiple times a day.
Yes.
When people heal, when they feel better, when they get joyous, when they have peace in their heart, how they show up in the world.
Yeah.
And the world is better because of each one doing the work.
Yeah, I do. I love that. That's a beautiful title. When one person heals, the world heals.
I
That
truly,
yeah.
yeah. And if I may say, Savia, I have done my work quietly in my cave for my whole life. I've been very blessed. People have come to me. I didn't have social media presence. I didn't want to do any of those things. Why am I here with you? Because of that legacy piece, that I want to scale the impact of that legacy now.
Yes.
I am ready to come into the world and say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I can contribute. And hopefully, if it's received well, then there are more people coming into the fold and doing the work.
It will be received well. We'll manifest that. 100% will manifest that. I don't believe anything is by accident.
Exactly.
I believe everything happens at the right time with the right people on purpose. And that is a phenomenal thing within itself. Nothing is by accident. All the people you meet, the time you wake up and then you see people, everything has its moments and right times. Nothing is by accident. So definitely, I'm here to help manifest that for you, and I want that for you. And I hope it continues to do that regardless. So I've only got a few more for you. And one of the questions I do want to ask is, if there was one question that you wished people asked you, but people never really do ask you that question, what would that question be and why?
It's interesting. I don't know if I can answer that. I know I think about the things that I would like them to think about for themselves.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. What could they ask me that would contribute in some good way? I'm being very honest. This is something we would need another podcast if you're okay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I can say, Savia, I have the answer to that one.
Definitely. Maybe that's something for me to leave you with to think about. I think it's a beautiful something beautiful to think about, because I find, and I hope you agree, but I find that the people that work so beautifully in the background, who give their lives to give a service to other people, who are humble, have compassion and kindness, those people never really think of themselves, because they're so happy by giving a service of love in what they do, that we often, very often, forget about ourselves, because the love, the commitment, the tolerance, the patience that we have to other people feels abundant to us, and it's enough for us, that when we get asked these questions, we're like, have never thought of that. So it's really cool.
Well, thank you for putting such a beautiful spin on that. And it's, absolutely what you said is so true. When you're really, truly in service, you love every aspect of it, and it fills you with beauty. Even though I'm surrounded by pain, yet it's not the pain, but the individual whom I'm working with, who's beautiful, who's got amazing things they bring to me. The love that I receive from them is overwhelming for me. And when you asked me this question, I had this one thought that I could always give you a nice sounding answer. I'm smart enough to come up with something.
100%.
But that would not have been true. That would not have been authentic. That would have been a lie. And I chose to say, if I seem stupid, then I seem stupid. But I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for this one. I will have to think about it.
I don't think anything is stupid. I think you being honest is the best thing that you can be. And that's what makes you who you are, is your honesty. And that's the best thing. So if there was one message that you would like the listeners to get from listening to this podcast today, what would you like it to be and why?
I really want people to have hope,
I agree.
because the world is messed up. Our family has problems. We have money problems. We have relationship problems. We have health problems. And we are embroiled in trying to find solutions. And so often people think that what they're experiencing is unique, and that, they're probably destined to go through life being stuck and being unhappy. And I want people to know that that is so far from the truth. There are solutions. We just have to be open to seek them, because, like you said, nothing happens by chance. The number of people that I meet under the most bizarre circumstances is only because I say, this is an answer to your prayer.
Yeah.
When we are seeking solutions, the universe will present those solutions in so many different ways.
Yes.
I'm a healer. I really think healing is incredibly important for us to shine our light as we're meant to. And we all need healing. And it's not woo-woo, it's not unscientific. And I invite everybody to explore deep karmic healing as an alternative to everything else they might be doing, because it's very powerful.
See, and my last question for you is, before I have the pleasure of saying thank you to you for coming on the show, I would love for people to be able to find you, to find out about what you do, people who might want to ask you questions about what you do and just connect with you. Where can they kindly find you?
Well, I have accounts on all platforms. So I am on Instagram. It is Ajita Shah Official.
Yes.
I am on LinkedIn. YouTube, I'm actually, as we speak, just starting to post things on YouTube. Yeah, so that is also Ajita Shah. So I have a website, ajitashah.com, has some information, also a contact form. So, yeah.
There you go. So
To answer any questions.
I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Ask People podcast, for sharing your story in your way, authentically, calmly, but more than anything, for you just humbly being yourself. I appreciate you, and I know the guests are going to appreciate you. So thank you so much for taking your time to come on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, for asking these beautiful questions that I had to expand myself to answer. I really love being here. Thank you so much for your time and for the wonderful work you do.
You're more than welcome. And this is where I say, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. You can also go back to the very first season or episode of the Ask People podcast. You humbly have 300 episodes to listen to. So please find one that resonates with your soul, who you are, can help somebody else in their life, or even save a life, because you never know. One sentence from one episode can do so much to so many people. You can also go to the Savia Rocks website or the Us People podcast website and read some of the most inspirational stories which I write about every episode of the Us People podcast. And this is from me to you. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
I'ma get deeper. Tables are turning, world in reverse, political burning. Where is the love? Where is the hope? Where is the faith inside? It's been misplaced, power being misguided. Manipulation used for both sides. Unjustified violence. You living it up in your kingdom where you.
Whichever is the harsher. So, in a way, the masculine energy. If you find that masculine energy is also interested in, both people, if they're having the same struggle, then they're both mirrors for each other. But if one is struggling and the other one is just, I'm going to be with other people and just basically being narcissistic, then the job is for that individual to, the one who's suffering, to evolve. Are there consequences for the other partner? Sure they are. But they have come into your life to help you evolve.
Okay.
Either you evolve together, and I find, so you are a millennial, right? You might be able to make it work if both people are willing to work and this is all about healing.
Yeah.
Twin Flame journey is about healing. If both people are willing to deep dive and do the healing, then you will come out beautiful, pristine, and be able to have a good relationship. I mean, okay, I should take that back because healing is a lifelong thing, but you're on the same journey with the same goals. But if one is being an ass, then that's their journey and they've just come in to help you evolve. See, the beauty of this relationship is that you have been together in the past, and that is why there is that instant recognition.
Yeah, that's
and
what it is.
instant bond, like, because you have had past lives together.
Yeah.
You know, and that is boom. But then what are you doing now? You know, so you have come together with a blueprint and an understanding. Each person's playing a certain role.
Yes.
Now, if your partner is also willing to work, then you guys are lucky.
How do you breathe and how do you sleep? I guess it's a lie you've been telling yourself. Your hidden agenda ain't really about peace. Your hidden agenda ain't really about love. Change the status quo, sins of your fathers. Ripping through time, we living it, breathing it deeper. Tables are turning, world in reverse, political burning. How could I breathe when I see people dying on both sides? We need to do better, shell shock, yeah, imagine that. Powers pretending they don't even have blood on their hands. You living it up in your kingdom where you're using the misguided constellation used for both sides. Unjustified violence. Change the status quo, sins of your fathers, ripping through time.